Stop the video right now, because what I'm about to tell you will change how you look at every person in authority for the rest of your life. My name is Detective James Morrison. 93 people died in my presence, lungs still working, eyes still open. I watched every second. I know how that sounds. Impossible, right? That's exactly what they counted on. In Ashford, Pennsylvania, population 4,287, we discovered that the most dangerous weapon isn't a gun or a bomb. It's trust. And I broke the only rule that could have saved us all. I trusted the wrong person. Actually, I trusted the one person everyone trusted. 3 months ago, Dorothy Patterson called me at 6:47 a.m. Her voice wasn't scared, it was confused, which somehow made it worse. Detective Morrison, my husband went to bed beside me. I felt him there at 3 a.m. when I got up for water, but when I woke up at 6, her voice cracked. His side was cold, like he'd been gone for hours, but I would have heard the door. I'm a light sleeper. In Ashford, doors creak, floorboards groan. You can't leave a house without making noise. It's the kind of town where privacy is a myth and everyone knows everyone's business. Or so we thought. Turns out, we didn't know anything at all. Here's the question that's going to haunt you. What if the person investigating the crime was the one committing it? What if every clue you found, every lead you followed, was deliberately placed to lead you away from the truth? Keep that in your mind. Because I was that investigator, and the man I reported to every single day, the man I called Chief, he was counting my victims like poker chips. Rewind 6 months, Ashford's Autumn Fair. I'm standing with a corn dog watching Police Chief Raymond Blackwood give his annual speech. 28 years on the force, a war veteran, coached Little League, lost his wife to cancer 5 years back. The whole town mourned with him. My partner, Detective Lucas Grant, nudged me and said, "That man's going to run for mayor someday. Everyone loves him." I nodded. We all loved him. 3 days later, Lucas missed our morning briefing, didn't answer his phone, and when I went to his apartment, his dog was still there, whining at the door, food in the bowl, keys on the counter. But Lucas, gone, like he'd evaporated mid-sentence. They started vanishing faster after Lucas, one every 3 days, then daily. Then, and this is what broke me, multiple people per night. By week 6, we'd lost 72 residents. And here's the detail that made my blood run cold. There was a pattern. Not in who they took, but in who they didn't. Whisper. Children under 12? Untouched. Pregnant women? Untouched. Anyone with a pacemaker or serious medical condition? Untouched. They were selecting, filtering, like someone was shopping for specific inventory. And the precision, it required access to medical records, background checks, personal histories. It required someone inside the system. Week 4 brought the FBI, Special Agent Marcus Vale, the man who'd cracked the Cincinnati vanishings, the Detroit underground network. He had this unsettling habit of staring at you like he could read your thoughts. First thing he said to me, "Detective Morrison, in 73% of mass disappearance cases, the perpetrator is involved in the investigation." I laughed, told him everyone on our force had been polygraphed, vetted, cleared. He didn't laugh back, just stared at my evidence board and said, "Someone is feeding you information. The question is whether they're helping you solve this or keeping you distracted." I should have listened. There's a reason predators volunteer to find the missing. It's the perfect cover. "James, you trust Blackwood?" Lucas asked me that 72 hours before he vanished. We were parked outside the old Riverside Industrial Complex, the factories that'd been abandoned since 2003. "Chief, with my life. Why?" "I followed him last night, after shift. He came here, 3 in the morning, spent 40 minutes inside, then left." I told him he was paranoid, that Blackwood probably had insomnia, took late-night drives. But Lucas grabbed my arm hard and said, "James, I pulled the property records, Guess who owns this complex? His hand was shaking. A shell company called Apex Holdings, and guess who's listed as a silent partner? I never got the answer, because that was the last conversation we ever had. By month 2, Ashford was a war zone. National Guard checkpoints, curfews, mandatory buddy systems. The governor declared martial law. But here's what nobody could explain. How were people vanishing from locked homes with armed guards stationed outside? The disappearances always happened between 2 and 4 a.m., always from their beds, doors locked from the inside, windows sealed, no signs of forced entry, nothing. It was like something was reaching through the walls themselves and plucking people out of existence. I interviewed 180 people, family members, neighbors, witnesses, and I started noticing something that made my skin crawl. Every single person, when describing the night before someone vanished, mentioned the same thing. The air felt heavy. I couldn't sleep well. My dreams were strange, vivid, but disconnected. Then, Robert Chen, a pharmacist on Oak Street, pulled me aside after his interview. He was sweating, trembling, and he whispered, "Detective, I've been analyzing my own blood. There's a compound I don't recognize, something that shouldn't be there, and it's getting more concentrated every week." He disappeared that night before he could tell me what the compound was. I brought Chen's theory to Agent Vale. He didn't hesitate, made one phone call, and within 4 hours, we had CDC specialists, toxicologists, chemical weapons experts swarming Ashford. They tested everything: food, water, soil, building materials, and this is what made my hands shake when I read the report. There was an airborne compound being dispersed throughout Ashford, a synthetic agent called Morpheus-9. Military grade, highly classified. And here's what made my hands shake when I read the report. It was being released through Ashford's centralized climate control system. The same system that Chief Blackwood had championed, pushed through the town council, personally overseeing the installation of 3 years ago. His legacy project, the thing he said would put Ashford on the map for sustainability. And Agent Vale's financial investigation revealed something that made me vomit when I read it. Chief Raymond Blackwood had received $6.8 million over 3 years from a biotech company called Meridian Collective, a company that, according to FBI forensic accounting, was funded by a network of defense contractors, pharmaceutical corporations, and foreign intelligence agencies. They were testing Morpheus-9, a synthetic agent designed to induce what they called controlled biological stasis. Translation: a drug that could put someone in a coma-like state while keeping all organs functioning perfectly. The applications were limitless: organ harvesting, interrogation, human experimentation, suspended animation for space travel. And they needed human trials, lots of them. So, they bought a police chief and turned an entire town into a laboratory. We were the rats, 4,287 people who trusted our chief of police. The climate system worked in phases: low-dose exposure during the day, building up in our bloodstreams, our organs, our brains, undetectable. Symptoms mistaken for stress, insomnia, anxiety. Then, at night, targeted, concentrated releases in specific homes, algorithmic selection based on medical profiles. Whisper: when the compound reached critical saturation in a person's system, they'd enter total paralysis, conscious, aware, able to hear, see, feel everything, but unable to move a single muscle, unable to scream. And then the collection teams would arrive, disguised as emergency responders, paramedics. They'd administer a secondary agent, load the bodies into ambulances, and transport them to the Riverside complex, where Meridian had built a research facility 3 stories underground. When the FBI raided the complex, I found Lucas in Chamber 23. Alive, technically. Suspended in that twilight between life and death. Tubes in his arms, electrodes on his skull. monitors tracking every biological function. There were 93 people in that facility, 93 neighbors, friends, family members floating in glass prisons. And the research logs? The logs showed they'd been testing organ regeneration, neural plasticity, cellular preservation, consciousness transfer. They'd been recording their dreams, mapping their fears. One note, written in Blackwood's handwriting, said, "Subject 23 shows remarkable psychological resilience, recommended for Phase 3 trauma response testing." Subject 23 was Lucas, my partner, my friend, reduced to a number in a monster's experiment. We found Chief Blackwood at his lake house. Not running, not hiding. He was sitting on his dock, fishing rod in hand, watching the sunset like it was any other Thursday. And when Agent Vale put him in handcuffs, Blackwood looked at me, directly at me, and smiled. He said, "James, you're a good detective. You figured it out faster than I expected. But you're thinking small. Do you understand what we've accomplished? We've solved death. We've created a bridge between consciousness and biology. In 50 years, humans will colonize other planets because of this research. Cancer will be curable because we mapped cellular regeneration in real time. What's one small town compared to saving the entire species? 14 members of Congress, 63 pharmaceutical executives, 28 military contractors. The conspiracy reached the Pentagon, the CIA, the Department of Defense. They'd chosen Ashford because we were isolated, small, economically depressed, a town where disappearances could be explained away as people leaving for better opportunities. We were expendable. That was the calculus. Our lives were data points in a cost-benefit analysis. And the sickest part? They had 8 other towns lined up, 8 more communities ready to be converted into human testing facilities. Ashford was just the pilot program. Of the 93 people we recovered, 58 survived the reversal process. 35 died during extraction. Their bodies couldn't handle the shock of reanimation. Lucas survived. But when I visit him at the psychiatric facility, he doesn't recognize me. The man who came back isn't Lucas. The experiments damaged something fundamental. He has memories that aren't his, fears that don't make sense. Sometimes he speaks in languages he never learned. The doctors call it consciousness fragmentation. I call it torture, because that's what it was. Systematic, calculated torture disguised as science. Ashford is a ghost town now. Most survivors relocated, couldn't bear to breathe the air that poisoned them, couldn't trust the ground that hid underground torture chambers. I stayed. Someone has to remember. Someone has to make sure this doesn't get buried under classified stamps and redacted documents. Because here's what they don't want you to know, what they're desperately trying to suppress. There are 6 other sites. 6 other towns where the program is still active. I managed to copy files before they were sealed. Towns scattered across rural America, places nobody pays attention to. And according to the intelligence I've pieced together, only 2 sites have been shut down. Ashford and one in Oregon. Which means right now, as you're watching this, 4 American towns are breathing in Morpheus-9. 4 communities are being systematically harvested. And the people responsible? Most walked free. Immunity deals, classified settlements, national security exceptions. Blackwood got life in prison. But 89 co-conspirators are still out there, still working, still protected by the same system that was supposed to protect us. So I'm warning you, pay attention. If you live in a small town and your local government just installed new climate systems, if people are disappearing and the explanations feel scripted, if the air tastes sweet at night or your dreams feel wrong. Trust your instincts. Document everything. Because the monsters don't hide under beds. They wear badges. They sit in council meetings. They shake your hand at community events. And they're counting on your trust to get away with murder. This is Detective James Morrison, and I'm not signing off. Because somewhere out there, in 4 towns whose names I'm trying to find, people are still being taken. And I will find them. This story is just beginning. If you have information, strange disappearances, unexplained installations, officials with hidden wealth, drop it in the comments. I'm reading every single one. Share this video, because silence is exactly what they need to continue. Subscribe for part 2. I've obtained the personnel files. You need to see who else was involved. And trust me, some of these people are still in positions of power right now, watching you.